Good afternoon, everyone. So far, we looked at some theories on software engineering methods, right? So we looked at design process. Last week, we also looked at the configuration management. Now, in order to teach the rest of it, I thought we'll get our hands dirty. We'll get into a programming framework and then try to build something and then see how we will be building along with the processes required to build that. So I'm selecting the framework known as Laravel for this. And Laravel uses a mechanism called the MVC, the Model View Controller. So we need to understand both principles before we get down to anything. By the way, I'm using this because Laravel is fairly a simple framework to understand, and it has everything built in. So we don't need to be installing anything else, anything other, extra things to get going. For example, user authentication or user policy management or migration for databases or seeding the database. Everything is included. So we can very easily get things by running, simple codes. Those are called artisan code. And this uses, by the way, PHP. So PHP is the language. Laravel is the framework. And it uses the concept called MVC. So how does the MVC work? Well, it works like this. There are 3 layers in this architecture. The user is using a browser and user is interacting with the browser. So what you see on the browser is known as the view. So you see buttons, you see forms, you see text, various things. So you are basically viewing it, right? And whenever you do an action, like say when you click something, or when you click on drop down, when you drag something, so you are basically interacting with the view. And each component on the screen is connected to a corresponding controller. So view is a class. These are classes, by the way. In object-oriented principle, all these are classes. So view is a class. And that class will be communicating to a controller class. And of course, in the controller, certain methods, say, for example, when you, there can be buttons, a button called add button, list button, view button, things like that. So say, for example, when you click the add button, it will call add method or whatever method that you have specified in the controller, right? So control is a class, add is a method there. So that's exactly what you're calling. Now, this mapping of the view to the controller is known as routing. Okay, that's called routing. So you will have in the URL, you have various things. Say, for example, you might have a controller known as books. Okay, so in that, you might have a method called add. So, or create or whatever. So for you to get to that, you will have a URL, say localhost /books/add. When you type that in the view, which is the browser, it will take you to the controller's view method. How is that mapped? That is through the router. Okay. And in the controller, you can do whatever you want. You can, just go back and say hello, or you can then connect to a database. All right. And download some, say, for example, you want to list all the books in the database. So then you need to contact the database, download the list of books, and then pass it on to the view again. Now, the controller does not talk to the database directly. The controller will be talking to another class called the model, right? And that model class will be talking to the database. So you see there are 3 files here. The view file, which is talking to the controller through the route, controller talking to the model, and the model is then talking to the database. And the database data will be taken to model, then will be passed on to the controller, and from the controller, it will go to the view. Now, in many other programming languages, you are responsible for every layer, and you are responsible to bring in various different plugins to process these things. Now, take Node, for example. Node is very good. Node is robust. Node is used by large scale applications. Fantastic. Everything's fine. Problem for learners, students, is that it's overwhelming. It's complex when it comes to doing a simple thing. Okay, so that's why I'm using Laravel, where everything is integrated in one platform. Some say Laravel is not suitable for large scale application. Okay, maybe not. But since we are in the process of learning things, the concept is the same. MVC same on Laravel, MVC same on Node or Python or anything else, C Sharp or ASP.NET. It's exactly the same. So when you know the theory, you know how to apply that. Then it's a matter of optimizing the chosen selected framework, isn't it? Whether it is Node or Laravel or ASP.NET, you need to go deep inside and configure it. Now, each one can be um, faster or slower depending on how you configure it. Okay, so that you need to keep in mind. But our job here is to understand the fundamental, and you must master the fundamental, and then only you can get to the details. Now, also, in our unit outline, there is nothing about Laravel or developing application or whatever of that sort. But then there are a lot of theories that we need to map out. Yeah. So we need to know the process of building software. Now for that, we need a sample. So I choose Laravel for that. And we also need a mechanism to store our data. Okay. So I'm selecting Bitbucket to store my data. And I'm also using Jira to process my features and then basically doing my agile management. Okay. So today we are doing something very basic, which is installing something called Laragon, very much like the SAMP, but it has much more facilities and also more advanced than SAMP. And then inside that, I'm going to install Laravel. Okay. All the steps are there. In fact, I have another very good article that I will be sharing in a minute. It also shows how to install all these things. And after installing, I want you to go through, creating a very basic thing, and you will realize how simple it is to create files. All you need to do is just type the artisan command and it will generate the code for you. Now, talking of code generators, you need to be very careful as well. Now, sometimes there are some code generators generating everything from A to Z, which is also something that I don't recommend, because then you may lose the full control over your application. It may be generating too many things also. But here with Laravel, we are generating the absolute minimum files required for our project. Now, for example, you can create one view file, one controller file, one model file. And then if you're using databases, I also recommend creating a migration file. So migration file is like a database schema. It tells you the name of the table, the fields, the field type, all that stuff, and also relationship to other tables, default values, all that. So you can create each one separately. There are commands for that. And there are also commands that will generate everything at once as well. Okay. So you can create everything at once, or you can create each one at a time. But there are also other concepts like the REST concept. REST is a way where we access resources, whether it is an API or otherwise. It's a very robust, efficient concept of accessing these things. And Laravel has a concept called resource-based controllers, and it will automatically map to the corresponding routes. So two things, it will generate the route and it will generate the control automatically. Again, absolute minimum. All right. So the work we need to do is very, very minimum when it comes to Laravel. You just need to, worry about your logic, and that's about it. Yeah. So when you know the logic going on, that will essentially tell you, what is going on. So that most of the things are taken care of by the Laravel engine. So let me. also share you another document. So I'm sharing some best practices with you. So that you can directly access these things. I'm going to share a document with you which has a lot of stuff here. Okay, where is it? Right. So I am going to upload this document as a activity so that you can go step by step and then do it yourself. It will be lab sheet number 2. So this is the document. These are the commands you can use. Okay. You can, well, it says, for example, create controller with default method, create model and migration. So this is the command, by the way. We'll go through each one to understand how these things are planned. Okay. So first of all, we need to install this gadget called the Laragon, right? Which you can get it from here, Laragon. And I think what I'll do is I'll take you through that. Um, so this is the Laragon file, site. So there are two versions that we can use. So go to download. So two editions. There is a full edition and the portable edition. Please use the full edition because the portable edition will have issues later. Okay, so get the full edition. It's about 173 megabyte. Download that. And when you uh, entire screen. Okay, there we go. So when you download that, you will get, once you download and install, you will get this program here, right? So this is Laragon. And you will see that in the side panel here, right? So this green color one. So in the beginning, when you start for the first time, this is what you see. You see start all, web, database, terminal, and root. So you need to first start all. And then you can see if everything is fine, you see your web server is running Apache on port 80. And you also have your MySQL running on port 3306. These are the default ports. Be careful, because if you are already running something like SAM or any other web server or MySQL server or any database under this port, you will have trouble running this. So you have two choices: change the port or stop the other application. So my suggestion is stop the other application and put focus on Laragon and Laravel for this activity. So these are you start your Laragon server. Now, when you do a right click on this, you get another menu here, right? So you can, now for example, if you want to install any other software, you can do it here as well. So PHP, for example, if you go to PHP, these are the things you can look at. Say, for example, if you know PHP, there is something called PHP ini file, the configuration of the PHP. These are all the extension installed on the PHP. So you can very quickly turn on, turn off something if you want. And then there is also versions of PHP. Now I have two versions on my laptop. I have 8.1 and 8.3, which is the latest. So you can very easily select or switch between the versions from here. That's PHP. And then Apache is the server. So you can see the Apache configuration file here, httpd conf. Sometimes you have to edit that file. MySQL also has something here. Now here, there are two ways of running your database using HighDSQL or PHP HighDSQL is a desktop application. PHP is a web-based application. And again, you can have multiple versions if you want to, right? So that's the, and also, by the way, you can create a database, you can change the root password. Here's the MySQL ini file, and the log file is also here. So we can very easily jump into whatever that you want. Of course, there's a Node.js one as well. So currently it's running with this version. So if you want to install any other version, you can do it as well. Python is also there by default, right? I'm not running that. I'm only interested in Apache and MySQL, right? That's why these two are ticked. PHP, I'm running the latest, which is 836. Okay. Right. So that's the configuration. You can also go here for other configuration systems. So for example, where I have installed it. Now I have installed it under C Laragon, and my document root where my website is installed is www. Then what? Okay, services and ports. These are the services. Now, if I want to run anything else, I can just turn it on and then it will start. Now, this is the engines versus Apache. So that's another port, another web port, another web server rather. Then Memcache, if you're using cache engines, you can turn that on. Redis is another caching mechanism. So that's another on here. So I have not installed, I guess, Postgres and MongoDB, so it's not there. I can't turn it on. And then there is something called mail catcher, which is also interesting because from your program, you can send mail, right? But we will catching them. So we are not sending it outside our system, right? So we need to run a little program. It's under this. So we have to run the mail catcher program, and then that will redirect us to a web-based beautiful interface. We'll see how to use it to capture all the emails generated from our system, right? If you want, we can also send mail from our system. For that, you need to put Gmail account name and password, test it and enable it in case if you want to test. But I don't recommend setting it up here. Just leave it there. Right. So that's on the preferences side. And then when you click web, okay, it will open up a web page, which is the the default. Okay, I'm getting a error message. It's all right. HTTPD error. Okay. So this is the Laragon's website. So port 80 showing us this. Okay. So I can see PHP version 836 and document root is here. Not very exciting to me. Then the database is very important to me. Database is going to be showing me like what database I have. So right now by default MySQL is installed. And then the username is root, password is blank. And if I say open, it will open my database here. Okay. So these are the databases I already have. So we'll go through this later so that you can see. Now these are the tables I have inside this database. And then I can also double click on these databases to look at my structure or data I have, right? So for example, these are the fields and these are the data types. So that's the ID SQL. And then terminal is a very interesting terminal. This is a very colorful terminal from Laragon. And you can also have multiple terminal windows, tabbed windows. Like here, for example, you can say restart or duplicate a root. You can restart this in case if it is stuck, you can restart it without closing. Or you can also close or kill. You can duplicate is something that I use very often. So you might go into a folder like in this, for example, and then there you may need to take another copy because we'll be running some command from the command prompt. So you can just say duplicate root. Yes. And I have two here, right? So that's another very interesting command prompt or terminal. And this will open up our root folder. So if I click that, it will just open my root folder here. So you notice I have a few things installed here. So you don't have this yet, right? All right, so that's where we are with the Laragon installation. Next up, we will see how to go to the terminal and then install Laravel. Okay, that's a good question. If you are on Unix or even on a Mac, what do we do? Well, in that case, you don't need Laragon because you already have your terminal. You already have probably Apache is already installed in your system, or maybe Nginx maybe already installed. So in that case, you need to figure out where you want to install your application. Generally, let's say if you have already installed Apache, you need to go to Apache folder. And then Apache has a web root. It's called www root normally. Go there and then you can install anything you want in that. Okay, so you don't need to install anything else. You don't need Laragon there. All right. Okay, so first things first. Now, after you installing your Laragon, you go to laravel.com and then click the documentation button and you come here. Now, there are different ways of installing Laravel. As you can see, this is the basic way. And then there is another VM type called herd. You can install it on herd. I'm not going to do that. And then the preferred production way is actually using something called Docker, right? I'm not going to do that today. Later, we will see how we can get Laravel installed on a Docker image as well. And then, by the way, you notice Laravel can be used as a full stack framework. What does that mean? Unlike other applications where you have hundreds of different libraries to put together, Laravel comes with everything you need. Backend, front-end, template engine, database system, everything you need is there. Okay. Or if you don't want the front-end side, and if you only want the backend as an API engine, that also can be done. Right. So you can use Laravel as an API backend, where you will have something like a Next.js or React or Angular, anything, or Flutter maybe, talking to the backend. Or you can have the full thing using Laravel also. Right? You can build complete product with Laravel. Okay, so there's some stuff to be read here. Please read this. This is very important text. By the way, Laravel is also very popular. One reason for that is the documentation. This site I'm looking at, right? And right now, as of today, we have version 11. There are lots of different versions available here. Since we are using the latest, let's go with the latest, 11. Every year, the version number is increasing. So next year, it will be 12, right? So this year, 2024, it's 11. Right. So going down, why Laravel, it's all information here. Okay, so here's the command to create your first Laravel program. Now, by the way, you see there's something called Composer, right? So Composer is called a PHP package manager. Now that also can be downloaded from here. Composer download. If you go there, and here's Composer. So if you don't have Composer, you have to download and install that also. Now, by the way, in order to run Composer, you need PHP because Composer is part of PHP and you already have PHP with your Laragon, right? So install Laragon, number 1, install Composer, number 2, and then number 3, install Laravel, right? And you can also download the exe file and then get it done. Or if you have, say, for example, Unix or a Mac, you can do this as well. Yeah. So all the instructions are here to download and install it. Get the latest stable version. So that way you have the latest accessibility. Right. After that, you come here. Okay. Creating Laravel project. So this is the command. The command is you're running Composer. And then this is the command that says create project. And then this is the library you're accessing, Laravel / Laravel. And this is the name of your project. Okay. That's one simple command. Or you can install the Laravel as a global command and then do this, run the Laravel command. Right? You can either do this or do this. Since I'm not creating Laravel every day, I'm okay with this command. So I can press this little icon here, which will copy that to my dashboard, my clipboard rather, and then I can paste it in my terminal. Now let's go down and see what else is going on. So after I do that, I need to cd, that is I need to change into my folder and then run this. That's it. Okay, nothing to do. So very simple. Right? And then there are certain other things. So let's do this and come back and read the rest of it. So I'm going to go to my terminal here. So I am inside the C drive Laragon /www. So that's my web folder. Okay. So when I do a double click or a paste my command, I get it here. I am going to give the unit code this time so that we know exactly what we are doing. So it's CCS3310. CCS3310. Okay, so that's our unit code for software engineering methods. And here we go. So now it is creating a project inside that folder and it is downloading now. Downloading and also installing all the components I need in order to get my project running. Pretty fast, it's downloaded, installing. Still going on. So it downloaded everything. All these are packages, by the way. So you see how simple it was. Everything is automatic. Right. Now, you notice a lot of stuff was installed, everything is fine. And all I need to do now is PHP, okay, PHP artisan serve. That's it. Oh, sorry, I have to go to the folder. So I had to go to cd ccs folder, and then I had to run my command. That's where I install my projects. Okay, so here we go. This is the URL I need to go to. You can either say localhost colon 8000 or 127.0.0.1. Yeah. So I'm going to go to this here, local 8000. There we go. Right. Okay, I have a problem. It says could not find driver, SQLite, Pragma, foreign keys. Oh, okay. So it's not finding my SQL database. No problems. What I'm going to do is I go back here. Let's create a database and then configure that database also. So I'm going to open my database. I'm going to call that database also with my unit code. So to create a database, you go click on it and say create new database, CCS3310. Collation is actually, it's important if you're storing English, non-English, stuff like that. I generally prefer the, okay, there's a single version as well. So I generally, okay, there is a general CI, which is this, or all the way up. There's a Latin version with only English. UTF-16 is there, UTF-8 is there, UTF-2, okay, where is UTF-16, general CI. So this is my preference because it's a general purpose, right? And this is the uh, server default. So I'm going to select this one and say, okay. If you don't have it, no problem, don't worry. Right, so here's my database. I don't have nothing here, so don't worry about it again. What I need to do now is to go here and, oh, it's running. Remember, I said we can duplicate the console, so I'm going to do that now. Duplicate root, so that I don't have to type the cd command again. I will be automatically taken to the same folder. So I'm going to type code space dot to start my VS Code. It will start my VS Code here with the entire source code within the system. Right, I'm going to maximize it. We are in the folder. So what I'm going to do now is to edit this env file. In fact, specifically, I'm going to change the database. So here, rather than saying SQLite, I'm going to say MySQL. And then I am going, these are all, by the way, commented. So I can uncomment it. And remember the database name was CCS3310. And the rest is fine. Username was root, password is blank, port is 3306, and the host is our local host. All right, I did that. And this you can change if you want. Let's say CCS3310 test. Okay, that's the name of the project, by the way, app name. So I'm going to go here and now reload again. Ooh, what happened? Local is going to, oh, 500 server. Why is that? Oh, white space. There is a .tn. Okay, now see, there is an error in my .env file. Encountered unexpected white space. So I know exactly what it is. That is actually come from here. So if I want the space, I need to put it in double quotations like this. Otherwise, it won't work. All right, now let's refresh. Okay, good. Now it says SQL state base table or we've not found. Tables session doesn't exist. Connection, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so some things are not run. So I have to run migrations. Table or we've not found, table session that doesn't exist. Okay, so what I'll do now is if you go back to my document here, there are certain commands that we need to run, right? Actually, it's basically migration. So let me go back here. Actually, I have to run command. I have to go to a new command window here. So PHP artisan migrate and see what happens. Okay, so what happens now is it created these three tables: user table, cache table, jobs table. So how do we know? Okay, I can go here and refresh it. Wow, all the tables are created, including the cache that he's talking about, right? Nothing is there, so no data. No problem. Very good. I go here, reload again. There is our Laravel. Okay. Now, why this is black? Well, because I have turned on dark mode on my laptop. By the way, so this is also important. So I'm running Laravel 11, PHP 836. So let me see whether I can turn off my dark mode. Is that? Turn on dark mode. Oh, choose your mode dark. So I'm going to say light. There we go. Here's the light mode of Laravel. Uh-oh, it's going somewhere else. I click something. There we go. Okay, so you can see the text is here. All good. Right. So this is the first thing I want you to do. Right. We are now ready. So what is next? So going back to the documentation, I want you to create a controller um, and some routes and some views. Before that, we also need to understand, by the way, this is the thing I added, yeah, to the .NET, .env rather. We need to understand what is going on here. Okay. So this diagram shows what is actually happening when we start Laravel. So this is called the request lifecycle. There are lots of files here as well. So here we go, the user. User is requesting from the web server something, right? And that request goes to the public folder index.php file. So if you go here, public folder index.php file. This is the one it is calling first, all right, in the public folder. And it doesn't do much, you see. And that file will be calling bootstrap folder autoload php. By the way, this bootstrap is not the CSS framework, okay? Remember that. Nothing to do with bootstrap CSS. This is the bootstrap file. Folder rather, and there is a file called autoload php that is getting loaded. That will load start PHP, that will load app PHP, and that will load kernel PHP. Okay. And the kernel PHP has certain things called service provider register. It has to load what is registered. Okay, by default loading will be there. All the service providers will be loaded in the boot method, and then it goes to the router. And the router, according to what you requested within the user, will be taking you to the appropriate controller. And the controller will be calling the appropriate view, and that view will be going to the user. This is the story of Laravel, right? So in between, we can break it and put something to filter it out and all that stuff. But in simple form, this is the story. So whenever you go click something, that is what is happening, right? Okay, now we need to customize this. We need to have our own controller, own views, own method, own routers, everything else. So what we're going to do now is, let's go back to this. Okay. Okay, I'm going to close this, and I don't want this as well. I want to create a resource route. Let's say we want to have a controller to process books, right? Let's load some books to our database, read them, and allow the user to add the book, view a book list, go page by page. You can do all kinds of interesting things. You can have paginated view of books. You can add a book. You can also view a book, update a book. So that's called CRUD functions. We can do all the CRUD functions very simply with the controllers. Yeah. So today I will take you through the setting up of this and have a very simple, I'll stop at the controller. Next time we will talk about the view and see how we can incorporate the framework like Bootstrap into our Laravel so that we can have beautiful screens. Now, by default, Laravel 11 doesn't include any, well, that's not right. It does. There is one called Tailwind. So it does include Tailwind, but up to us. We can use Tailwind, we can use Bootstrap, no problem. Anything we want, we can install it. So now when it comes to web development, there are three technologies, isn't it? There is the backend language, which is PHP. For the front end, we are using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, those things are inside the resources folder. So this is where you have your CSS file. This is where you have your JavaScript file, and this is where you have your HTML, but actually they are saved inside a PHP file. So this is my welcome page, which we saw there, right? This is the welcome page. You see, this is HTML, right? Doc type, HTML, head, meta, title, you see? And this stuff is basically coming from Tailwind. So Tailwind is already part of Laravel. So here, if you want to have custom CSS, you can have it here. If you want any custom JavaScript, you can have it here, right? So we are also, we have access to something called Axios to do connection, or rather the request through JavaScript. That also can be done. So you can request Java's REST endpoint using JavaScript or your PHP, right? So it's all built in there. So Bootstrap is not there. So maybe we will learn how to use Tailwind, or we can bring in Bootstrap also onto this, because Bootstrap is easy, but not very configurable. You can, but all Bootstrap website look the same. Yeah. Whereas Tailwind, it's highly customizable. So every website looks different on Tailwind. So that's one reason why people are going from Bootstrap to Tailwind. All right. Now, going back to my document here, under my commands, right? You see, create controller with default methods. Is this create model and migration together? For that, you need to run this command: create model, migration, controller together. So everything at once using one command. So I'm gonna copy this line and then go to my console, my second console, where I can type my commands, paste it, and name of my controller is going to be book, not books. You see, capital P, because this is a class, by the way. So it will be like this, book. Now pay attention. If you come back to this section here, there are, remember configuration and the others that we discussed previously, how to name our things. So controllers are starting with capital letter. Models, again, capital letter. And controllers are singular, right? It's product controller. Okay. And then models, product, or book review, or controller model property, like this. So in this case, I just give the name product. It'll automatically create that into the respective names. So PHP artisan make :model dash MC. MC stand for migration and controller. Name of the resource is model is book. Dash dash resources will give us the automatic method names. I press enter. All right, I got 3 files. Okay, so one file is in app folder. It's the models folder, book PHP, which is a model. And the migration is the database schema, which is inside database migrations. Controller is inside the app HTTP controllers, book controller. There you go. So the naming convention is very well done. By the way, migration has a date stamp, right? So this is today's date and the timestamp, and it says create books table.php. Fantastic. So let's go to the respective files now. Let's go to app HTTP book controller. There we go. So now look, I have index method, create method, store method, show method, edit method, update method, destroy method. These are called REST method. Now, if you go back to the documentation, you will notice that coming down, okay, here. So these are called the resource controller method. So I hope you understand the REST mechanism. Okay. So REST mechanism uses HTTP verbs for actions: get, post, put or patch, and then delete. That's it. So by using this verb, we control or we process our information. So if you are calling a URI like photos with a get verb, your action is mapped into the index. So this is actually called the index action, where you are basically getting down the list of the activities. So photos, if you do a get request, will give you a list of photos. That's what it says. And the name of the route is photos.index. And if you do photos/create, that is going to be showing you a form where you can create the resource. So that will be mapped onto the route name photos.create. If you do a post method to photos, you are basically storing a resource. So that will call the photos.store method. By the way, these methods are coming from, these routes are coming from the route file. These actions are coming from the controller file. So you need to decide, okay, what name I should call, right? So if you give an ID here, get photos ID, it will show one item. If you give ID/edit, then it will allow you to edit that. If you call put or patch method, you are basically updating the method. If you are calling the delete verb, you are basically destroying or deleting the resource. So that is what is mapped here. There's also some comment here saying what it is. I'm going to use this one here, right? Public function index. Right. So I can't do anything now because I don't have a route. So I need to set up a route now. So I'm going to go to route here. And there are two routes, console route and web route. I'm going to use a web route. And right now, again, there's only one route, which is the root route calling the welcome screen. So I need a route that goes into the book control. Okay, so go back to the document. I have documented this for you. So where is that? Right, so here's the command we ran. And where is it? Yeah, that's the one. So this is my route. Okay, so the route is called a resource route because it will automatically generate all the routes for us as per the chart I showed you. The base name is books, and it is calling the books controller or book controller. Now I am, it's not working because, okay, let me show you why it's not working. I have a route called books, all right? So technically, when I go here and say /books, it should work. Well, it's not working because it's not found. So I need to go back. There is an issue because the book controller is not found. So I need a mechanism to import that. So this is the way to import it. Use app HTTP controllers book controller. So I'm going to say here, or actually that's in the book as well. So this, by the way, right? So I have to import it in order to use the control. Okay, good. Let's go to the browser again and load. Very nice. It's blank because my controller doesn't do any work. So now I need to go back to my book controller and let's put a normal echo and say, hello from book controller index method. Okay, so it's just a echo. All right, so go back. There we go. We got our output. Now, if I look at the source code of this view page source, I have no HTML code here at all because this is not a good way of putting things. So we will learn later how to bring in a template properly and then make this page looks beautiful. before I get to that, we are only talking controllers here. Now, according to MVC, we have three, isn't it? We have view, we have controller, then we have the model. So we are not talking to the view yet. Now, where is the view? The view is inside resources. So inside here. So generally, my advice is to create a folder for every resource, like in books. Let's create a folder here called books, right? Inside that, you can create your view file. So I'm going to create a file here. Let's call it list dot, oh no, let's call it index dot blade dot PHP. Now, blade is a little extension we are going to use with Laravel because we are planning to use the blade engine. It's called a template engine later. So anyways, I'm gonna, let's have a H1. Say hello from book view file. Okay. Now it doesn't work because we have not incorporated that here. Okay. So I'm gonna comment this one here. You can say return view. So we need to give the file name. So we have books dot index. Okay. Let's see whether this works. There we go. It is working. All right. Now, just to give you a little bit of idea about the possibilities, this is not the right way of doing, but just to show you the possibilities, we're gonna boot get bootstrap. I'm just gonna show you what we can do with bootstrap here. So go to docs, quick start. So I'm gonna use let's say this here, just to show you, what is possible. I go to this one here. Oh, hold on. Actually, I can copy this whole thing. Yeah. Guy and put it here. Now let's see what happens. Start index. Why was that? Oh, I have it not found. Oh, sorry. Books. Okay, there we go. So my route was wrong. So this is coming from Bootstrap, right? Now I can have all kinds of Bootstrap stuff here. Say, for example, if I want, say, alert. Oh, sorry, I need a class. Alert, alert. Danger, right? There you go. Right? Or if I want to have here, say containers. So I'm gonna have that here. There we go. So this is not the right way to do. I'm just showing you the possibilities. Okay. I have not touched the model yet. The database, not done anything. I'll show that to you. I want to show there are a couple of things we need to do. I want to show you migration, seeders, everything. So we'll do that next time. So actually the file is here. So if you go to database, you have factories, you have migrations, and you have seeders here. So if I go to migrations, so these are the migrations we have. So this is the one I created. Okay. So right now it has only ID and timestamp. By the way, it is not there in the database because we did not run the migration. So there is no table called books yet. If I want to do that, if I want to bring that in, I can just simply call the migration and it'll create the file for us. I will not do that because this is not enough. So I need to have titles and things like that. So, and when you run the migration, it'll automatically create the table for us. Okay. So I would like to create books, then also authors, and then try to connect books with the authors so that one book may be authored by two authors and one author can write multiple books. So it's one to many both ways, right? Then there are others like pivot tables and whatnot. We can do all that very easily using the databases here. So you notice I didn't install any plugin, nothing. I just, with few commands, I was able to get the whole thing running. Now, just for give some information to the people who want advanced information. So Composer JSON is the one that is showing us the components that was installed. Okay. So in fact, this is all we need for our project. PHP 8.2, Laravel framework, and Tinker. That's it. For development, Faker, Pine, Sail, all these are required for development work. That's all, right? And these are scripts, by the way. So we don't need to worry about all that. And that's for PHP stuff. Now, package JSON is about CSS and JavaScript. So nothing much to install here. We are using another plugin, by the way, called Wheat, which is here. Right, Wheat is one of the latest plugin mechanism to compile CSS and JS to one single file or a compressed version so that loading of your data is very, very fast. So the compilation goes into these places. Okay. Anyways, so we did a lot today. So if you notice, actually, you can go back to the document. We install Laragon. We installed Laravel. I also showed you to install Composer, right? Then we had to configure the database because remember it didn't work in the first instance. So I had to configure MySQL. Then here, after this, we need to run the migrations also. From the terminal, type the following to start the Laravel server. So yeah, we need to have, oops. We need to have another one that is PHP artisan migrate and then PHP artisan server. Okay, so once you go to the localhost, your site is working. And then go to the Laravel documentation to read what is going on exactly. And it's really a very good documentation. And you also notice that we created one resource controller with automatic method names. Then we added some stuff there. And then we also created a V file to return something from our view control. Okay. And I also got some references for you. So how to name things, and then the action and mapping to the routes and the controllers. Then, oh, by the way, these are the very important HTTP status codes. If you are getting, now remember we saw 500, we also got 400. I don't have the entire list. I'm showing you the most important ones. Okay. And then this is the request lifecycle. And there are also some very interesting links here. So installing and getting Laravel working on Windows in few steps. So this is a very good article, the Medium article. This is the explanation of the life cycle. So read that as well. These are the commands for you. You can just copy paste it. By the way, this is another interesting one. PHP artisan down and PHP artisan up. So there may be situations where you may be upgrading your server and then clients are still accessing it and you don't want them to do that. So you can simply go to your, where is my, okay, here. You can say PHP artisan down, right? Application is now in a maintenance mode. Now, if you reload, it says service unavailable. Okay. So this is a better one to show when you are working on your project. If you want to bring it back, just say up instead of down, right? Application now live. Load again. There you have it. All right. Okay, so that's all for you today. Next time, we'll look at how we can bring in the database part into this. And after that, I'm going to push this to Bitbucket. Okay. And there we will get into the agile mode and then we'll start developing a one feature at a time. So I would like to start from, let's say, what are the features we need? So that's called list of backlog. And then we will pull something out of that and create a sprint. And then we'll develop the sprint, or rather we complete the sprint one by one and see there are certain charts like burn down chart and whatnot. So basically we are using Bitbucket as a repository and Jira as a project management tool to see how we can combine all that while we are working on our PHP project. Okay. Any questions?